Hey there, friends, and welcome back to another 3-Minute Thoughts. My name is Derek, and 3-Minute Thoughts is a podcast where each morning we take a few minutes to walk through a chapter of Scripture, understand what God is saying, and talk about what it means for real life. Today, we're in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and this may be one of the most personal things Paul ever writes. Paul tells about an incredible spiritual experience. He says he was caught up to the third heaven. He saw things that couldn't even be explained. In fact, he says he heard things that cannot be told and that man may not utter. And you'd think an experience like that would be the high point of Paul's spiritual life. But then comes the strange part. Paul says that because of the greatness of these revelations, he has been given a thorn in the flesh. We don't know exactly what that thorn was. Paul never tells us, and honestly, I think there's something helpful about that. Some people will guess what it means, but we almost all have a thorn, and so maybe you can relate. It might be a physical limitation. It might be a recurring struggle. It might be a difficult relationship or a weakness, a disappointment, or something you've prayed about for years, and you still haven't seen God remove it. Paul says he pleaded with the Lord 3 times to take this thorn away, and God did not. Instead, God answered him with these words, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." That's not exactly the answer Paul wanted, and it's probably not the answer most of us want either. We'd prefer, "I've heard your prayer and I'm going to fix it." But sometimes God's answer is, "I'm going to meet you in the middle of it." And that's a very different kind of answer. Paul will go on to say, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." It's almost impossible to understand until you've experienced it. Paul isn't saying that weakness itself is a good thing. He's not celebrating pain. He's saying that weakness creates a space where we stop pretending that we have it all together. Think about Jacob. He wrestled with God and walked away with a limp. That wound became part of his story. Or there was the man born blind in John chapter 9. Jesus doesn't explain his blindness as something meaningless. He says the works of God would be displayed in him. The point is not that every difficulty has an explanation we can understand. The point is that no difficulty is outside God's ability to redeem. And that's where this thing gets pretty personal. So the question is, what is the thorn you've been asking God to remove? Maybe you've prayed about it once. Maybe you've prayed about it 1,000,000 times. And what if God's grace really is sufficient? Not because the thorn doesn't hurt, but because the presence of Christ is greater than that limitation. Sometimes we spend so much energy asking God to change our circumstances that we miss that He might be doing something in us in the middle of them. Paul's thorn stayed, but so did God's grace. And maybe that's the word someone needs to hear today. You don't have to pretend the thorn doesn't hurt, but you can trust that His grace is enough while you're waiting. My grace is sufficient for you. God's words for you today. Be well, friends.